Richard Krause.
Congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much.
This isn't the first time you've played Orson Welles. Tell me a little bit about the ramp up to starring in Me and Orson Welles.
Well, I was... it's that cliche that I'd read about so much, being in the right place at the right time. And reading about it from all these actors, I thought, well, it won't happen to me. But my word, it did happen. I was there in a tiny little theatre in New York, so far off Broadway, it was in Canada. Suddenly this wonderful director turns up, and I'm doing my little one-man show. And
which was called Rosebud, The Lives of Orson Welles.
Lives of Orson Welles, yes. And suddenly Rick, I was giving him the names of famous Hollywood stars that could play the role. Because I thought, they're never going to cast an unknown Englishman, a stage actor. I've never heard of me, never mind anybody else, that sort of thing. And, and of course it would have been so much easier for him to have cast a famous actor, but my word, he stuck with me. He said, I'll go and find you some stars to play with. I went, all right, yeah.
Well, and he found you Claire Danes and Zac Efron, but you hadn't heard of Zac Efron, I understand, when the film was cast.
Well, I'm fairly sure he hadn't heard of me either. But yes, indeed, and there was a lovely story about that, because Rick rang up, and he said, Zac Efron, oh, right, I'm sorry, I don't know the name. And that morning, we put on the time, terrible in the mornings, and put on the television, and there's Zac being interviewed for the BBC. And well, there he is. He's very good looking and thin, isn't he? Get to the gym. And then we went into London, a bus went past. Zac on the side of a bus. Like that. We went to buy a newspaper. There were stickers you could buy. And chocolate bars with his face on. I like this. We went to get some groceries later. There was a cake. I bought that. And there was posters, calendars, books, CDs. And that night, as I was settling, under my new Zac Efron duvet, me and my wife, I knew who he was. And I thought, well, that's a definition of fame, isn't it?
Well, maybe that's a sign that you had to do this movie too.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Perhaps.
Now, Orson Welles, I always think of as a much larger-than-life character. How then do you, literally and figuratively too, but how do you take a character like that and make sure that on film he's not too larger than life?
That was the trick. Because, of course, being a stage actor, large gestures of the theatre are not at all suited to film. But then I'm playing a theatrical animal. I'm playing a larger-than-life character with such largesse. Yeah. And to learn technically how to do that, well, the only thing I can suggest is in answer to that question, is that you have one of the world's greatest directors leading you through it and taking time and patiently explaining. We had a kind of semaphore. Rick would go, and I go, bring it down. And then about 3 weeks in, or perhaps a bit longer, 5 weeks into the film, he suddenly looked at me and he went, bring it up. And I thought, well, I'm learning, So, but he was so patient with me, and but he thought we totally agreed on how to interpret Orson. He's our Orson. So, and of course, everybody has an opinion on Orson. He's a wonderful character. So, this is our Orson,
right?
And I wanted to make it as authentic as possible. Not, he's a great hero of mine, but he's a flawed man as well. I wanted to show some of the flaws, some of the vulnerability, some of the things that perhaps the legend, those familiar with the legend, are not so familiar with. That that striving and vulnerability, and this being the beginning of his career.
He's a hero of yours, but a flawed guy.
Well, we're all flawed.
Well, no, we are, but his flaws are a little bit more public, perhaps, than most of ours are. Do you see his career as one of wasted promise, or how do you, when you look back at the body of work that he created, because that's sort of the general wisdom about Orson Welles, perhaps, is that he squandered his talent making wine commercials and things after a certain point. What's your take on it?
From the wine commercials, a lot of money. He put them into his films. The godfather of independent filmmaking. That's a man of obstinate integrity. It's the only way he could have done it.
Right. Christian, thank you so much.
Does that answer that question?
That does. Well, it'll work
that's
for us.
That's a soundbite and a half.
Well, while you're here, you must go see his house, which isn't
North
far.
Stanley Avenue.
Yeah, that's right.
I've been there.
Oh, good,
Where we
good.
filmed The Dreamers, of course.
That's right, yeah.
And
yeah,
then,
yeah.
you know, the LA Fire Department came along and he sat there with his cigar saying, "Sorry, guys." And of course it was because of all the lights and he didn't have a
Right.
permit. And he's there with a huge cigar saying, and they said, "Mr. Wells, it's not because of your cigar." And he went, "Really? That's all I'm doing."
That's hilarious.
They let him
Wow.
off, bless him, because they knew he didn't have the money.
Richard Krause.